Hi there, I'm Stephanie Kleinberg, women's health coach and creator of the Know Your Cycle Challenge, a 14-day challenge that teaches you everything you ever wanted to know about your menstrual cycle, both so that you can feel good on your period and also so that you can connect the dots between your period and your health and fertility, so that you can take a proactive stance in both of those two important parts of your life. You can sign up for the challenge below. I'll be sharing the link right after the video, and we'll be kicking off right after the holidays on January 8th. Thank you for joining me for the first of this 10-session Let's Talk Periods video series here on Facebook. Today what I want to talk about is the period index, as I like to call it, and these are 3 markers for period health. So the first one is frequency. How frequently is your period coming? And when we think about frequency, we're thinking about duration of your cycle and consistency. So ideally, your period is coming every month, somewhere from 28 to 32 days apart. Okay. Now, there are exceptions, right? There are times where we are late a month or we skip a month, and generally, that's okay. Our periods can get delayed because of a stressor, and that could be a dietary stress, so a change in your diet. That could be a lifestyle stress, something you've got going on at work or at home. It can also happen from a change in your workout routine. So having an off month or an exception every once in a while is okay, but ideally we want to go for once a month, every 28 to 32 days. Sometimes we get our periods. I just want to talk about a few exceptions, some ideas for you, but sometimes women will have periods that come too often, so you'll be getting a period twice in that same amount of time, 28 to 32 days, and in that case, I would suggest having your thyroid levels checked, right? So an exception every once in a while is okay, but if you see time and time and again, month after month, at least for 3 months or longer, that your cycles are irregular, coming too often or not often enough, then I would say that's when we want to think about going into the doctor, doing something about it, looking into it. So on the one hand, we could have short cycles that come very frequently, and for that, it can sometimes be an indication that your thyroid is not working up to par, so you can check on that. And then the other option, or the other thing that tends to happen, is that we have cycles that are too long apart, too far apart, that don't come often enough. And in that case, we want to look into that, especially if you're trying to get pregnant, because the less that you're getting your period, the less that you're ovulating, which means you have less chances then of getting pregnant. So we want to really aim to get that normal cycle, which again can vary woman to woman, but ideally is every month, every 28 to 32 days apart. After frequency, the second marker that is important to pay attention to are your PMS symptoms. So when your period does come, how do you feel in that week leading up to your period? Right, so it is common, the typical PMS symptoms, and this is a topic that I'll talk about in one of the videos coming up in the series, but typical symptoms of PMS are feeling tired, feeling bloated, feeling irritable or down, having cravings, right, feeling hungrier, tender breasts. Those are typical symptoms. And the key here is how severe are the symptoms. So if you notice them, right, they're slightly inconvenient or uncomfortable, but they're not severely impacting your life, then I would say that falls within that normal range. But if they are so intense or so severe that it's really impacting your life, Then I would say first, of course, you always want to seek some extra support and help. So I encourage you to bring it up to your doctor. But in addition to that, I would say especially some of those indications can be something is off hormonally in your body. And so you really want to work on supporting hormonal balance, another topic that we'll talk about in coming videos. And you could also check out the blog for more ideas. But this is really important, and especially focusing on estrogen to progesterone balance, because that is what can really throw off how you feel before your period. The third marker is your flow. So what's your flow like? And again, the ideal here is a 5 to 7 day flow, a healthy flow of bright cranberry colored bleeding. That's not too thin and also not too heavy or thick, right? So that's what we're going for. Some things to look out for, on the other hand, would be heavy bleeding, really light bleeding, or also brown spotting. Okay, so we'll just start there. So let's start with light bleeding. This is something that I experienced when I was going through my triathlon training. I was training for a triathlon. I had a lower body fat, and actually what was causing those light periods, and sometimes no periods at all, was low estrogen. So that's when your period is so light it almost looks like spotting. And that could really come from low estrogen, which at the root of low estrogen is nutrient deficiencies or adrenal burnout. So this is really something that we want to pay attention to and say, hey, this isn't right? What does my body need? So light periods can, again, mean low estrogen or adrenal burnout, and definitely you'd want to then support your body in getting enough healthy fats, especially as a starting point there, and taking it down a notch if you're working out really hard. Then there's heavy periods, right? This is the opposite extreme, and definitely one that I hear of more often than I hear of light periods. But heavy periods are lots of bleeding, right? You're running through tampons and pads like throughout the day, and that can be coming from too much estrogen in the body. And in that case, well, the first thing that I want to say is it doesn't have to be like that. There's a lot you can do to support yourself with diet. And so the key factor here when there are these signs of estrogen dominance or too much estrogen in the body is really making sure that your liver is able to break down and metabolize estrogen and eliminate it from your body. So you want to incorporate plenty of liver supportive foods and water as number one, hydration, and then also lots of leafy vegetables, especially from the cruciferous family. So kale, collard greens are all going to be really helpful there. And then the third one is the brown spotting, and this is also a common symptom that I hear a lot too, where your period starts off with brown spotting instead of that healthy red blood that we were just talking about. And that can come from low levels of progesterone. And low levels of progesterone can really be attached to some of those PMS symptoms that we're talking about. So about feeling your best all month long, you want to make sure that your progesterone levels are in check, especially if you're trying to get pregnant. This is important too. Your progesterone helps the uterine lining build up, and that's going to be crucial for implantation. And so in this case, you want to make sure that you're eating plenty of egg yolks. Don't leave out the yolks. Yolks are really beneficial for healthy fats, building healthy fats, and especially progesterone. And really just lowering stress levels as much as possible is always helpful as well. So that's something to look out for too. Just a few tips, these 3 metrics to keep on top of, to look out for when it comes to your period, trying to help you decipher what's normal, what's not, so that you can really take a proactive stance in your health and your fertility. So thank you for joining. I would love to hear from you in the comments. One takeaway from this video, what you found was helpful, and how you are going to pay attention, what you're going to pay attention to and how in your upcoming cycle. So on that note, I would really suggest having a place to keep track of your period and your symptoms, and that can be anything from an app. I personally like the Clue app, or just your agenda, right? Noting it down in your agenda, whether that be in a notebook or on your, personal paper agenda or your computer agenda, but having a spot where you can really go back, because this is really important information that you want to have your hands on. All right, so questions and comments are welcome below, and I look forward to seeing you next week at the same time for our next video. And I also invite you to sign up for my newsletter by going over to stephanieklimber.com. Throughout these next 10 weeks, I'm sharing exclusive content with my newsletter list all around this topic of menstrual health, and I would hate for you to miss out. So you can sign up there, and thank you again for joining me. Have a great day.